Hey, I'm live for the day 20 of the 21 days of wellness, the wellness professor Leo Simpson II. And I'm not that important. That's just me connecting with that. Nonetheless, I'm here to tell you about something that's so profound: how to never be a terrible leader. Okay, I gotta say it again just because it sounds so valuable. I want to talk to you today about how to never be a terrible leader. How to never be a terrible leader. Now, there's a lot of things that can make somebody a terrible leader. Um, they talk to people bad. They are unskilled. They have no communication effectiveness. It's a lot of things. But let me share this with you. I used to work for an HVAC company probably about 10 years ago. And one of the things that kind of set me apart in that company was my approach to individuals. But let me share this with you. There was a guy that I worked with who was like, I would say he was the technician of technicians. This guy was solid. He understood HVAC. He was knowledgeable. He was educated. He continued to grow himself, develop himself. He was hungry for everything HVAC. He loved to serve the customers. He loved to solve their problems. I mean, the guy was awesome. He did better with the technical stuff and the machines and not so great with the people. And he would admit this himself. It was one of those things where he found himself in the position to where it was like, man, I want to be in management because, I see where things are going. I see how I can help people. I see how I can train people and all that. He said, but man, people tough. So as we worked together, we were managers in the same company. He, in many instances, when he would deal with difficulties with the people he had to train and work with, he would come to me to get some tips on the one hand, but sometimes he was like, man, go talk to Leo. So he started calling me the people technician. Now, why is that? Because in the same way that he could expose and eliminate problems that kept people's systems from operating predictably and excellently, I could expose and eliminate problems that kept people from winning confidently and predictably. But why? Why is it that I had the ability to be one, called a people technician and have the results of being able to influence people in such a unique way to help them see their problems, see their blind spots, and be able to eliminate them so that they could win confidently and predictably? How? It was because I understood something that is quite fundamental that most people do not really deal with. It is, I understood the distinction between leadership and management very well. And I want to give that to you today. I want to give you the distinction between leadership and management. I want to give you the distinction between leadership and management. But before I do, I want you to say to yourself, there is a distinction between leadership and management. They're not the same. And like I said in one of my other lives and messages, you've got to understand that you've got to program your thinking, your subconscious, more than anybody else. You've got to be speaking to yourself. You've got to hear your own voice sometimes more than you hear somebody else's voice as it pertains to what you're going to think, believe, and desire more than someone else's. Now, you need to get value, perspective, principles, and then rehearse those, repeat those in a very repetitious manner in order to make sure that's there. But ultimately, you need to be the one doing that, putting that in your mind. You need to say the things that are important. that need to be in your mind. You need to hear yourself saying those things so that your subconscious can actually develop a trustworthiness with your voice with regard to that which is principled and trustworthy. Okay? So what is the distinction between leadership and management? Again, know that there is a distinction, and you have to be absolutely intentional about it. One other thing that I want to share is, so here's why it's so important that you clarify that there is a distinction between leadership and management. There was a situation I had back during the pandemic. I was listening to a message, and at the end of this message, this guy began to pray in his message. And as he was praying, he kept saying, you know, Lord bless this, Lord bless this person, Lord bless this situation. And every time he would say bless, like, it just made me kind of like uneasy. I was like, why you keep saying bless and I'm feeling bad about this? I'm feeling icky about this. I didn't get it. And so I paused it, didn't even finish it, and I went and took a walk and, you know, just kind of was really reflecting on that situation. And I realized I was caught in a whirlwind of my thoughts. And this, that I realized that I had been casual about the word blessed because of kind of how I heard it in certain ways in my environment at certain points in my life. And I just gotten to the point to where I was like, I just didn't want to hear it. Right. So much and so, for example, people around me growing up, they used to say, how you doing? Oh, I'm blessed. I wouldn't use the word blessed. I'd say I am well. Right. Makes sense why I'm the wellness professor, I guess. But I was like, I didn't want to use blessed because a lot of people were using it. It had become cliche. Here's what I discovered, though. There's an opposite to bless. It's called curse. And if you're not intentional about bless, which is a whole lot better than curse, then by default, you are going to be subjected to curse, right? It likely you're going to be subjected to it, but it's only in the intention of, one, will you be certain to see the benefit of that one? Now, I bring that up to say you have to be intentional about the clarity of leadership and management in order to ensure that you get the benefit from them, from it or from them, you know, together in cooperation or them independently. So much and so that one of the ways you can be a terrible leader is not know the distinction between leadership and management. If you're not intentional about leadership, nor are you intentional about management, then you cannot ensure that they are not encroaching upon one another and creating chaos, frustration, or confusion. It's good. And so it's very important that you create a distinction. Now, one other thing that I need to give you before I give you the specific distinctions is this. So I teach a concept called family business life mastery. It is absolutely the debunking of the insanity of work-life balance. I'm not going to get into that because that's not what I'm talking about. But there are some things within the context of the framework of family business life mastery that I need to share so you understand the power of the distinction between leadership and management. So one of the things that I share as it pertains to family business life mastery is that family life and business life are meant to be teammates and not opponents. Same thing, leadership and management are meant to be teammates and not opponents. They're not supposed to be opponents. They are supposed to be teammates. And when you don't know the distinction between them, they actually operate like opponents. Same way with family. When you don't understand that family really should be flowing into and out of one another, family should be fueling one another, and that families should be interdependently focused so that there's a clarity, that there's a need that each of them have of one another. Same thing with leadership and management. Leadership and management should flow into and out of one another. Leadership and management should fuel one another. Leadership and management should be within the focus of interdependence. Absolutely. And there's another thing you've got to understand. Leadership is something that can allow you to get to management with ease, but you can't get to leadership from management. You can't. In the same way, business needs family in order to exist. Family can exist without business, but business can't exist without family, simply because the people who make up a family, they have source of life. Business does not have source of life. People who have source of life have to establish business. As a matter of fact, I said this in my talk at the business summit that I spoke at for the Woodlands Area Chamber of Commerce. I said, one of the things you got to understand is people have source of life. People are born. Business, it's formed. Entities are formed. And the people who form entities are those who have source of life. So we give source of life to business by giving time, energy, and effort, as well as resources to it. So because of the focus that I've established in my own mind, and also with clients that I teach and people who engage with us related to family and business life, and being able to achieve mastery in family life and business life, they're able to have an experience of great viability between the two because they have a clarity and a distinctive awareness of them. Same thing with leadership. Leadership and management being appropriately distinguished is going to position you to experience wellness, not weakness, in the form of chaos, frustration, and confusion. When you got chaos, frustration, and confusion within the context of your leadership, therefore not leadership wellness, you have terrible leadership, and that means you're a terrible leader. But I'm here to help you how to never be a terrible leader. And in the context of understanding the distinctions between leadership and management, it's going to change the game for you. So let's get into it. Had to give you all that preliminary. There's a preacher that I follow. His name is they call him the business bishop, Bishop Wayne Malcolm. And he said, I never preach a long sermon. This is my introduction. That's the longest. That takes forever. Okay. That was my introduction. Okay. All right. The distinction between leadership and management. So having your mind like a T-chart, put leadership on one side, put management on the other side. So for me over here, it's going to be, this is the leadership side, this is the management side. And you got your line in between, you got your cross right there, okay? So it's your T chart, all right? It's your T table, I'm sorry. Same thing, I guess. On this side, I'm going to give you the leadership stuff, and you can put this down on your paper if you like, or your screen, your notepad, or whatever the case may be. And then I'm going to put the management stuff on this side. Here's what you've got to understand distinguishes leadership from management. Leadership is about who and why, and management is about how and what. Excuse me. Leadership is about who and why. Management is about how and what. Why is that the case, though? It's because the subject matters, those who are the objective focus of leadership are people and thoughts, and those who are the objective focus of management, or those that are the objective focus of management, is processes and things. I asked my students when we covered this portion, when we were talking about leadership and management in our business principles class, I asked them, I said, how many people have had managers who have just been like terrible? How many of you all have had managers that was just like, matter of fact, they are the reason you left the company you were with? A lot of hands went up. And just so you know, my business principles class has like 30 plus people in it. Okay. A lot of hands went up. And I said, do you know why? It is because people and thoughts were being disregarded and treated as processes and things. But how do you treat people and thoughts versus how you treat processes and things? Another distinction. You treat people and thoughts with finesse, with respect, with regard, with appreciation, with value. And yes, you treat the management side, the processes and things, with value and regard, but you must use force to get the things and the processes moving. They don't have feelings. They don't have emotions. They don't have intellect, intelligence. They don't have language. They are absolutely amoral. They don't feel anything. So they need you to do whatever needs to be done. Whereas the people need you to do what needs to be done, but you need to do so with finesse because you don't want to damage people and thoughts. That's good. You can damage a thing or damage a process and you can fix it. But if you damage people and thoughts, you might not get to repair that. You know, forgiveness is something that's powerful, and when it's given, it's magnificent. However, not everybody gonna forgive you. So leaders who do not deal with people and thoughts appropriately with finesse, you actually find yourself in a difficult position. I'll give you a perfect example. Now, I've had a lot of leadership success in business and in team efforts and, you know, my career and all that kind of stuff. I've had my most difficult leadership issues in my family life. Okay, with my wife. I'm giving you an example. So probably for the better part of, we've been married for 17 years, my wife and me. For the better part of about 12 years of our marriage, I sucked as a leader. Yeah, I'm telling you that. I did. I was terrible. And you know why I was terrible? Not because I didn't do some good things. It was because I was applying force in the interactions with my wife, and not finesse. Come on, Dad. Matter of fact, when I began to get better in my leadership, in my family life, I became even better in my leadership in my business life. Come on now. I'm not talking about family business like mastery, but I had to read that up. It was just perfect. I became a lot better as a leader in my business life when I really began to dial in the distinctive awareness and the clarity about leadership versus management in my family life. And let me just tell you, I think that most people fail more as a leader and a manager in their family life than they do in their business life because they don't understand the importance of really having solidarity of clarity and perspective there that is designed to fuel and flow into business life. That's another conversation, but it's very important. And so my wife, she would say to me, it's not what you said. Like what you said, I'm sure should have been said, needed to be said, but it's the way you said it. What was she really saying? You didn't say it with finesse. You said it with force. Well, I should be able to say it with force. I'm the leader. Or as George Bush, I think it's George W. Bush, the son, he said, I'm the decider. And everybody was like, okay, go ahead. No, that means I'm the dictator. And when you dictate people, you're not leading them. You're actually you're not even managing them. You're actually seeking to destroy them because you're really just using them. It's called manipulation, right? And so I got to say this. Remember I said, if you're casual about something, the opposite of that thing, you are likely to experience by default, right? So if you're casual about management, You might experience leadership, but it's not going to be leadership. If you're casual about leadership, you might experience management, but you're going to defaultly just get whatever comes ultimately. And the truth of the matter is, when you get distinctive, now you can be like very excellent, be efficient, be poised, have finesse. I mean, you can move through this thing. So, recap. What's the distinction so far between leadership and management? Leadership focuses on who and why, because the who and why that is focused on is people and thoughts. And in order to deal with people and thoughts, to influence and affect, engage with people and thoughts, you need to use finesse. On the management side, management focuses on how and what. And that which is the focus of the how and what is the processes and the things. And in order to influence, affect, move, engage the processes and things, you need to utilize force. So, leadership, who and why. Management, how and what. Leadership, people and thoughts. Management, processes and things. Leadership, finesse. Management, force. Now, there's another layer as it pertains to how things are then generated as it pertains to activity with regard to management and leadership. Like, if we're going to use force, what is the aspect that force leverages in order for there to be a representation of force in management? It uses motivation. What is it for leadership as it pertains to finesse? It uses inspiration. Here's why. Inspiration is about breathing into, right? Inspiration is about filling up something. Inspiration is about making something known in a certain way. To be honest, inspiration wakes you up. And guess what? Motivation is about movement. It's about making something happen. So much and so that motivation gets you going. I love how John Maxwell says this about motivation in, I think it's his 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. He said motivation gets you going, but discipline keeps you growing. It might have been his 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I can't remember right now. It's been a while since I looked at it. I just talk about it so much. He said motivation gets you going, but discipline keeps you growing. The key part as it pertains to what we're talking about is motivation gets you going. Motivation there gets, meaning motivation forces you going. Watch this. But inspiration finesses you up, wakes you up. You see? And so leadership has to awaken what though? Potential. The focus at the core with regard to why we need to deal with people and thoughts with finesse, understand the reality that the who and why is the focus, and that we need to be focused on inspiration, waking people, is because we're designed to influence people in a valuable way to awaken their unlimited, unfulfilled potential. To the degree that whatever it is that they manage, or that we manage with them, manage through them, manage for them, they can be able to deal with the how and what, the processes and things with the appropriate force, and be motivated to get going and produce, because management really focuses on production. Now, let me say this. Leadership, who and why, people, thoughts, finesse, inspiration, wakes you up, potential. Management, how and what, processes and things, force, motivation, gets you going, production. Those are both necessary, just like family and business are both necessary. But they are not to be in opposition. They are to be teammates. And the only way you can ensure that you never be a terrible leader, The only way you can ensure that you never be a terrible leader is to have clarity about what being a leader is in contrast to being a manager. It's so important. And in today's world, people have gotten to a point to where they manage people and really don't even lead things, because there's no way you can lead things. Things don't have thoughts. And even if you're in finesse with things, that ain't going to work at all. Processes, nah, those things need force. And so what we've done is we've made leadership management. And we've justified doing so because we deal with management from the context of the bottom line. I'm sorry, leadership. We deal with leadership from the context of the bottom line. We're looking at, are we getting the numbers? Are we getting the numbers? And so, we're cracking the whip. And let me just tell you, you crack the whip, man, you it's not going to really have a good result, especially not today. And I'm not saying that's okay for that to be the case, but man, these people today, man, they like, I quit. I'm done. I don't have to take this. I'm going home, like Steve Urkel used to say. You must understand the distinction between leadership and management. And I find it to be profoundly problematic for people to call themselves a leader and not be able to distinguish between these. I even find it to be problematic for people to call themselves a manager or be in the situation, circumstance, and experience as a manager and not really know the distinction between these and think that they are actually leading when they're just managing, or that the responsibility of their role is to cause processes, things to be in operation in such a way that you get production, right? And so when you understand that whether your title is manager or leader, executive or CEO or business owner or supervisor, or whatever the different titles there are that we can give, you must give regard to the fact that those things do not dictate whether you are a leader or a manager. What will dictate whether or not you're a leader or a manager is if you have responsibility for influencing someone, that's leadership, and if you have responsibility for producing something, that's management. Okay? But here's the thing. You don't have to have the title of a leader to lead someone. You may be able to lead your colleague, cross level. You may need to lead your leader. There's leadership because you have to have influence on the thoughts of others. Man, one of the things I really love to teach people is how to be a great leader by being a great follower. It's because when you understand that following a leader develops leadership qualities in you, you learn how to be more influential to a leader to where you can lead a leader, even though that leader has authority over you. It's because you understand that there's a collaborative circumstance and experience that you really are dealing with in regards to that leader. Why? Because both of you all have to manage something. You have a process, or you have things that you have to produce through, right? So understanding that you have a process or things that you have to produce through, you give regard to the fact that the reality is we need to give mutual regard to who we are as people and what we have as thoughts and the whys that are in us, and make sure we are careful in the sense of that we are not manipulative, but that we maneuver and navigate each other and our thoughts with great regard and respect. It's profound. And so when you understand that as a leader, that you really have the ability to inspire, wake up potential in everybody you come in contact with, it'll change the game for you. Here's why I say that. When you understand that anybody you come into contact with if they're dealing with an issue or a problem in the thing that they have responsibility for, be it whatever the process or the thing is, and that whatever they're dealing with, your job is to collaborate with them at the level of parity of potential so that you can have potential unleashed from you to them and potential can be unleashed from them to you, and that y'all are helping each other grow no matter what your level is, but y'all are helping each other to unleash that unfulfilled, unlimited potential that's needed for that moment. It is exceptional. What an experience. Such that it will cause you all to move into the state of motivation because you can actually get going or get moving and create momentum to produce measures and monetary units that are profound. Let me give you something else real quick before I get off this podium. I teach a concept, and I've shared this, I think, maybe in something else, called the 5 layers of success in life. And you think of it like an atom. So you got a core, and then you got all the layers that come out from that core. And life is everything out here, and then you got the layers. So from surface layer all the way in is money, measures, momentum, mechanics, mindset. Okay? So if you look at it at the core, and I always ask this question, which of these layers, if you remove it, will cause this whole thing to collapse? And most people, they say, well, if you take money out, or if you take measures out, or something like that. But generally, it's been a consensus that people would say mindset. And the answer is mindset. Because not just if you take mindset out, is everything going to collapse, but you take mindset because it is at the core of the layers. You take mindset out, everything else collapses, because core is really like foundation. It's like the rock. It's the thing which everything is supported by, right? And so you remove the thing that everything is supported by, you get nothing. Watch this. At the level of, at the core, the closest levels to the core of these layers, mindset is on the leadership side. Watch this. Mindset is on the leadership side, and mechanics is on the management side. Now watch this. If you remove management, it's not going to cause the whole thing to collapse, which means, remember I told you, you can get to management from leadership, but you can't get to leadership from management. Here's why. Because leadership is the core of everything. Leadership is the core of everything. You remove the core, you got nothing. Leadership is about the mindset. It's about the people. It's about those who have the intellect, the intelligence, and the language. The mechanics don't have intellect, intelligence, and language. It's actually those who have the intelligence, intellect, and language that actually create the mechanics, which is the management. Same thing with family and business. Families create business, meaning people who come out of families create business, be it as entrepreneurs or employees. Same thing. Leadership creates management. Mindset creates mechanics. And so the reason that I bring this up is this. If you remove mindset, everything collapses. But understand, if you have an appropriate flow, clarity, distinguishing between mindset and mechanics, and understand how they work in tandem, and they have this unique, posture together, this unique interdependence, this unique fueling, this unique flowing, what happens is the mindset and the mechanics working well together create momentum. So inspiration wakes you up. The potential aspect wakes up the potential that's necessary, and then motivation gets going the productivity aspect of that potential. So once the potential is activated, awakened, and activated, now it can actually get moving and get into motion. Momentum. And when you got leadership and management flowing well together, fueling one another, and operating in their focus of interdependence, that momentum that's generated starts producing results, measures. And those measures start becoming means by which they can actually be compensated tangibly. That's what money represents, the tangible rewards, that which you actually receive from the measures you produced. And so you got to understand, if you do not have a distinction between, listen to me carefully, if you do not have a distinction between, listen to me carefully, if you do not have a distinction between leadership and management, not only will you be a terrible leader, you will be a terrible manager. And if you get results, you will have a terrible long term. It will not be enriching. It will not be full of wellness. It'll be full of something that people are just accepting. And that's kind of where we find ourselves today in a lot of respects. And I hate to see that. That's why we're talking about this. Listen, I don't want you to be a terrible leader. I want you to be an excellent leader. I want you to have leadership wellness. I want there to be wellness in your leadership. Why? Because if you have leadership wellness, you can have the leadership wealth. You can have the wealth of a leader. Wealth of a leader is more in the people that they have surrounding them, in the people that they're able to influence and give value to, more than in the substances that they have, more than in the results that they achieve. But the beautiful part is when you have the people, when you have the relationships, it's hard not to have the results. It's hard not to also have the revenues. Huh? I'm telling you what I know. How? All right. So, how to never be a terrible leader? Know the distinction between leadership and management. Be intentional about the distinction between leadership and management. Pursue the distinction between leadership and management. Practice the distinction between leadership and management. Value the distinction between leadership and management. I think you get the point. I know you do. And I know this was beneficial to you because I heard it from the people that I first shared it with not too long ago, but whenever I shared it last, they were like, oh, this is good. Why? Because we have an issue with living like in the realm of hodgepodge, meaning everything just kind of runs together. Nah, create some distinctions. When you're able to distinguish between things and make sure that you have a clarity of what's to be done in certain situations and circumstances, it allows you to be most effective. It allows you to be most efficient. Okay. And so one of the things I share with my children, my family, my wife, myself, and my students, I say this on a regular basis. People that I influence in business, through my client work and all that kind of stuff, I say this and I'm going to give it to you. Do what's expected. When it's expected, with the right attitude, tell the truth. What's the truth? The truth is the clear expectation. So how can you do what is expected if you don't know what's expected? So how can you be a great leader? How can you have leadership excellence, leadership wellness, and be an exceptional leader if you don't know what the true expectation is of a leader because you don't have the awareness of the distinction of leadership and management? Share this last thing with you. When I worked at UPS and I went into management training, and one of the things that was a definition in one of the parts of our training was management. Watch this. Management is about getting things done. I want you to hear this definition. Management is about getting things done through others. Wow. What's the most important part of that definition? Management is about getting things done. Things. Management focuses on processes and things. But here's the thing. You must understand that you've got to get the things done, but you can't do it yourself. You have to influence people to get it done. So here's what I would say. Management is getting things done through people. I would say it more so that management is about getting things done. Leadership is about influencing people. And so you put them together, you can say, we need to lead people who manage things that need to get done. Right? And so management is solely about getting things done. But what they were trying to communicate to me, which was actually true, my role was to be a manager of processes and things. And I was not supposed to do those things. So they communicated it in a way to give us to understand that in order to get these things done as a manager, you must get them done through other people. So if they're going to get done, you have to influence well the people who are getting those things done so that you can be credited with getting it done. That's really what it was saying. And that's a way that you have to break that down to where you can say, okay, if this is the management definition for this particular organization, let's make sure we operate without violating at the core what are the distinctions between leadership and management. And that's why that when I came in and was added to our management team, I added a unique component because I brought this distinction into our team so that I was getting some results. I was the youngest supervisor in as it pertained to the role, the age and everything. And they had more years, they had more experience, but I was getting more results, better results, more effective results. Why? Because I was operating in the distinction between leadership and management. But here's the thing, I'm not boasting about my results. What I was doing, I was trying to tell my colleagues, hey, here's how I'm doing this. How about you do this if you want to help you? And even there was one that would come to me on a regular basis, and I would be like, all right, let me give you the game. This is what I did. And for lack of better terms, I was telling him, hey, this is the finesse I use versus the force, right? And he was using a lot of force. He wasn't getting results. I say, hey, bro, you gotta use a finesse. And finesse doesn't mean that you don't deal with tough things, right? That's another conversation. I won't get into it. I'll get off my podium in just a moment. But last thing I'll tell you is this. Very last thing. When I was at UPS, I had a driver, and he and I had a really good relationship. We ended up developing a really good relationship over time. He was dealing with some difficulties in his family life that was affecting certain aspects of his work life. And so we really had to navigate well through that. And he appreciated the manner in which I handled that. That's finesse. Okay. So this driver, one day he comes to me. He's like, Leo, man, come check out my vehicle. And there was this phrase we use at UPS called bricked out. Be careful what I'm saying. I don't want everybody to get all into what we do. All right. That's nothing. Anyway, so he says, Leo, come check out my vehicle. So I go check out his vehicle, and literally he cannot walk down the aisle. It's like he's got packages all the way to the back of his vehicle. And I knew that he was in a situation to where the packages that he had, a lot of them were going to come off pretty soon because of how his load was situated and all that. But the fact is that it was placed on there in a certain way. And for timing's sake and a number of other things, there was nothing I could do. Well, here's what happened. I looked at him, and I remember when I had that situation a few different times with my own vehicle when I was on the road. And I said, let me ask you a question. I said, this your vehicle? He looks at me. He's like, yeah. I said, well, that's your beast. You're the master. Now go tame it. And he looks at me and shakes his head and just walks off. Why do I share that with you? That's an example of finesse, because that was a very tough conversation. I was pretty much telling him, I can't really help you right now. Like, timing wise, we got to go. You got to keep it moving. But me looking at him saying, hey, is this your vehicle? Okay, this your beast. You the master. Now go tame it. In other words, I was empowering him in the context of his difficulty rather than amplifying the difficulty. That's an example of finesse. That's also an example of me showing him how to exert force. On a basic level, in being able to handle and address the processes and things he had to deal with the appropriate level of force. And I also said this to him: hey, when you get out there, keep me posted, give me a call so I can see how we can navigate things. Finesse versus force. Okay. All right. I said I was going to get off my podium. I'm getting off my podium. Listen, I appreciate you for your time. I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you. Make sure if this was valuable to you, leave a comment. If this was valuable to you, share it. If this was valuable to you, follow us on Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, do all the YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram stuff, and give somebody else some value, because we always preach it over here. Doing for others is doing for self. So give this value to someone else so that they can get some value as well. You go, be well, and as I often say, be great.